Things in the shortest time possible. The first is that we have a wonderful constitution, which is a product of the labor, efforts, and the sweat of many Kenyans for many years. This is the constitution that replaced the constitution we adopted in 1963. The main difference between the two being that the 1963 constitution was negotiated, adopted on behalf of the people by leaders of the dominant parties at that time. And by dominant parties, I mean dominant political parties of that time. For the 2010 constitution, first, the process took much longer. It was much more difficult, but more importantly, it involved a lot of participation of the people of Kenya, the people themselves of Kenya, in their representation. Many of that representation directly elected by the people to come to bomas of Kenya to make a constitution. Over and above those who had been elected through democracy. That marks one of the biggest and most fundamental difference between the 2010 and the 1963 Constitution. While the 1963 Constitution was driven by the voices of dominant political parties, the 2010 Constitution was driven by the voices of masses of people from the grassroots, blending it with the voices of the leaders who were holding office at that time. Mr. President, we are also lucky. Our Constitution sets a very clear hierarchy of the priorities of the nation. And that is the preamble we've just listened to, and that has just been replayed here. That preamble summarizes the national priorities. Those priorities are structured in terms of who calls the shots in our country. If you look at that preamble, the people assert themselves as the supreme human, the highest supreme human organ of constitution making. Unlike the 1963 Constitution, which had concepts like the supremacy of parliament and other concepts which have been overtaken by events today. Interestingly, Your Excellency, I have noted as a student of constitutional law that the same preamble, the people asserting themselves as the highest constitution-making organ, the people, they do recognize two things. That this nation exists subject to a higher authority, the Almighty God of all creation. That part is normally left a lot in constitution making, especially in analyzing the structure of our constitution. But the preamble also has told us downstream, the people who are the highest human constitution making organ have delegated most of what they would be doing themselves to organs of states and to the levels of government that are represented here. Both the organs of state, the three arms of government, and the two levels of government. Your Excellency, that preamble also helps us to understand our national values. We respect the individual, the family, the community, and the nation. That hierarchy, again, of the units that constitute our nation are spelled out there. The other feature, Your Excellency, again summarized in the preamble and elaborated in the many chapters, the 18 chapters that follow, is the feature that talks about intergenerational responsibilities and equity between generations. And the Constitution asserts that no generation is superior than the other. There are obligations of the present generation to future generations in perpetuity. Another distinguishing factor or ingredient of that constitution is the national values, the rule of law, democracy, social justice, and even environmental justice. Again, it is spelled out in the preamble. The other feature is the checks and balances system. If you look at the chapters on the three arms of government, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary, and how they relate with each other, the national government and the county governments, the independent commissions and offices, again, that relationship has been defined there. Two other distinguishing characteristics before I end my remarks, Your Excellency. And the one is that the Constitution creates a very, very paradigmatic shift on the rights and freedoms of the individual in a very dramatic way. And even as we pause to look at the challenges we are facing as a country today to implement this wonderful constitution, one of the areas that has brought a lot of heavy lifting as a nation is that issue around the freedoms of the individual and how individual citizens relate with one another. Finally, Your Excellency, this constitution, again in the preamble, summarizes our sovereignty as a nation in two aspects. One is it has said that we must protect the nation and its people so that we can be free from fear and free from want. Those are two important aspects of this constitution. The freedom from fear is what protects individuals and citizens so that they are not harmed by one another, they are not harmed by organs of state, they don't harm each other. And then you have the military for the defense and also the institutions of internal security for the internal moderation of law and order to prevent us from hurting each other so that we can be free from fear. But finally, this constitution is also about our sovereignty so that we can be a country free from want. Again, this is a very, very drastic introduction, not only for Kenya's constitutional framework, but for constitutional theory. Country free from want. Again, this is a very, very drastic and the rule of law and civil liberties, without saying, as much as these are important, there are other freedoms that a human being must be free from to actualize their full potential on earth. They must be free from hunger. They must be free from sickness. They must live in dignity. And that is a chapter on the Bill of Rights, on the socio-economic rights, which your administration, Your Excellency, has taken head on to deal with the difficult issues of public health and ensuring every citizen has the highest standard of health, making sure that we, as many Kenyans as possible, live in dignified dwellings, which have sanitation, which can pass for dwellings that are of dignity, and so on and so on. The food security programs, the agriculture programs are speaking to our socio-economic rights enshrined in Article 43 that calls on the state to make sure you create access to the services that lead to asserting the sovereignty of the people of Kenya so that they can be free, not only from fear, but they can be free from want. Your Excellency, as I call the panelists who are much more qualified than I am on this subject, I want to say many of the people who fought, labored and sweated so that we can have this beautiful Grunom law, this Grunom, this constitution, are not with us today. They have rested from the sweat and the labors of this world, and they are no longer with us. But their spirit walks with us. A few are still with us. And looking around at this hall, I see many, many of those who are part of this very difficult but important project for recreating a new Kenya. I have seen former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and many others. And I think I am in good space, and I look forward this afternoon to refreshing my memory, my mind, and my value system as a Kenyan on what I need to do to make sure that I live to the spirit, and I live up to the spirit and expectations of the Constitution in the office that I occupy. With those many remarks, Your Excellency, I've been requested to call the panelists. I don't know where they'll speak from. You give me that program, Michael. Just a minute. Where will they sit? They will come here. So, Your Excellency, sorry if I've spoken for long. You know, in your presence, my speech should be short. But I speak for long when I'm doing my own events. I'm sorry about that. I will call the following panelists who represent various shades of representation. The first one is our sister, my colleague in the profession, the Honorable Lady Justice Njoki Ndung'u, Judge of the Supreme Court, to represent the judiciary. Welcome, Justice Njoki, a very, very prominent player in the process, the 20 years of the constitution-making process. Welcome, Judge. I'll also call another colleague of mine and my senior in the profession and also in the academy, Professor Makau Mutua, Senior Presidential Advisor on Constitutional Affairs and Human Rights. Again, he needs no introduction. I will also call my brother again and my colleague, the Honorable Dr. Otiende Amolo, Senior Counsel, Member of Parliament for Arienda, representing Parliament. I'll also call FCPA Nancy Gadungu, Auditor General, who will represent constitutional commissions and independent offices. I will call to the dais Governor Fatuma Achani, Governor of Kwale County, representing the Council of Governors. And the discussant is going to be again my colleague and my brother, the Honorable Abdikadir Mohammed, Senior Counsel. Please make your way to the stage. Asanteni sana.